we landed at Aden very late. The aircraft was delayed for some political reasons in Cairo. I remember when I stepped off the aircraft, it was the same old heat that really hit you when the aircraft came to a stop and the engine was shut down and the fuselage doors were open. It was really, but there was another significant thing. When I stood on the tarmac, I was looking in the direction of Crater City, which is where the massacre took place, and there was this dark, somber cloud hanging over an area called Main Pass, where the ambush took place. Now, the reason I mention that is when I left Aden in 1967, before I got onto the aircraft, I looked in the direction of Crater, and as I've described it, there was a black, somber cloud hanging over the killing ground, and guilt. Excuse me, and guilt hanging over me, because we were leaving. Well, we were leaving our pals behind, and that was not a good thing to be doing. So anyway, I'm now back in Aden. I got off the aircraft, and that dark, somber cloud is still hanging there, and I'm getting a bit angry. And I don't know why I'm getting angry. I have no idea why I should be feeling upset and angry. I didn't come back here for retribution. I came back here to pay our respects to the lads that we left behind. So eventually we got to the hotel, and one of the things that I should have done was to gone to my room and rested, and I tried that and it didn't work. I just couldn't settle down. So I went down to the dining room, and I was completely on my own, and I was still angry, and I couldn't work out why on earth am I didn't want to be angry. I wanted to be relieved, maybe a bit anxious, but I was angry. And unfortunately, a short while after, I sat there on my own, drinking copious amounts of tea or coffee. One of the doctors, our doctors, the group was assigned a doctor, and came over, and he could see I was in a bit of a distressed state. And he said, what's going on? I said, well, I don't know. I have no idea. I said, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling guilty. I said, I'm not happy, I'm restless, I can't sleep, I can't rest. And he just said, well, that's probably because you haven't dealt with it yet. You need to deal with it. And as yet, whatever inside your head, once you've been to where you need to be, which is essentially going to be Silent Valley, to pay your respects, you're probably going to feel a lot better. And it was absolutely correct. But just in him recognising that state of mind helped to calm me down a little bit, sufficient to go out with the rest of the group for the day, which was really just doing what you wanted to do. So there was all the formalities to be done. We had a brigadier who was the brigadier attaché from Cairo come down to visit us, and he was brilliant. And he had his 2 armed escorts with him, and they were brilliant. And we got through a lot of stuff that we needed to do to prepare ourselves for the ultimate visit to the graves. Now, there were 2 graveyards, one at Marla, alias Murder Mile, which is very urban, and there was a lot of damage to the headstone because people used it as a shortcut, and you had shepherds with their goats going through, so we wouldn't expect it to be in pristine condition, but it was being looked after by a former colonel called Colonel Nader Ali from the Federal Regular Army, and he had 2 assistants with him, and he was doing his best to keep the place right. So we went from Marla Strait, which is called Murder Mile, by the way, oh, that's its nickname, to the Silent Valley. And to get there, you have to run the gauntlet through Murder Mile, up into Sheikh Othman, which is another gauntlet to run then, but we still were sort of like apprehensive of this Murder Mile and Sheikh Othman, and we got to Silent Valley, and the immediate effect was it was incredibly well kept. It was neat, it was tidy, it was orderly, it was out in the middle of nowhere. There was only one piece of damage, and I agreed with this damage, funny enough, and I'll come on to that. And there was a pinnacle, a very sharp pinnacle, stood out like a long finger, all on its own, and there was a white cross on there. That's obviously a Christian cross, and the local people tore it down, not once, not twice, but 3 times, and eventually somebody came to the senses and realised it wouldn't be torn down if it wasn't there in the first place, because it's offensive. It's an infidel's cross, if you like, and that was the only damage. And as I said, I kind of understand that. Everywhere in the graveyard, wherever you looked, it was absolutely peaceful, and we looked at the headstones of all the lads that we left behind, and the Argyll and Southern Highlanders, because we had a strong connection, affinity with them. And it was very moving. You know, you kind of felt all that had happened before and the manner in which the lads had been killed, murdered. Well, that wasn't in the atmosphere anymore. This was peace, it was quiet, it was serene, and it was where they should be, quite honestly. So that was that. So we made our way back to the hotel, and I'd heard from some of the other group, some of the lads from the group that I was with, that they'd been to Waterloo Lines, which was the barracks that we were billeted at the time in 1966, 67. And I thought, oh yeah, I must go there. So my roommate, David Waterworth, who was an officer in Y Company, we went towards Waterloo Lines, and they wouldn't let us in. The barriers were down, and there was an awful lot of people at the barriers, and we couldn't understand why. And we said, well, why can't we come in to have a look about? Our friends were here yesterday, because sir, it's a public holiday, we are celebrating. What are you celebrating? Independence from you, sir. So that was a bit, but okay then, you know, it's your day. All the shops were closed and the barracks were closed, and which was no longer barracks, it was the Ministry of Works and something or another. And David looked at me and he said, now what? And I said, just as I did that, as a fella stepped out from a crowd. Excuse me, sir. Yes, can I help you? And David looked at him and he looked at me, and I said, well, yeah, if you can find the shop that's open in Steamer Point, because they're all closed, because I need to take some souvenir. I can fix that for you, sir. And David said, well, not for me, I'm going back to the hotel. So off he went. And this Arab was, he looked more European than he did, because he had trousers on, he had a clean pressed shirt, he spoke perfect English, and he was so well mannered. And I said, and in my mind I thought, something's going to happen here, and I have no idea what it is, but I'm just going to go along with it. I said, yeah, okay, fine, you take me to Steamer Point. So he took me to Steamer Point, and he knocked on this door at the back alley, and the door opened, there was a big jovial Indian. I mean, he was really, it was so bouncy and so immediately likeable. Come in, sir, come in. So I went in there and we started buying bits and pieces, and is there anything else you want, sir? I said, no, thank you, paid up. And as we left, this who became my driver, Ray, he said, is there anything else? I said, yeah, there is one thing. I want to go up to Main Pass, and I want to go to the car park, and I want to get out and take a picture of the mural, the image that's on the side of the wall, which belongs to the South Wales Borderers. But I do not want to go in the crater. I've been there 3 times, I don't want to go in there. We'd been in twice during the day and once at night, and that was enough for me, you know. So he said, yeah, yes sir, yes sir. So we drove up the hill towards Main Pass, turned left into the car park, and I got out with my camera and took the picture, got back in the car, and he moved forward. Instead of turning right out the car park away from Main Pass, he turned left into Main Pass, into Crater. And I'm thinking, right, something's going to happen here, and I don't know what's going to happen. But I can't tell him what to do. I can't, you know, this is not 1967 where I could say, hey, you, out. It wasn't going to be like that. And I also thought, well, I can't get out of the car and start running about like a headless chicken. Can you imagine? It just wouldn't work, would it? And I had to think, but I need to know something. Before something happens to me, I need to know what. So I said to him, it just came to flash, what do you know about the British soldiers that were killed in 1967? And immediately he replied, I know everything, sir. I saw everything. So that put me in a bit of a state, really. But what was going to be was going to be. And he drove further down Queen Hour Road, and then turned right towards the entrance of the armed police barracks where the mutiny occurred. Well, that was the main effort against the soldiers that were killed from the armed police barracks. And I thought, well, he's probably going to take me into the barracks, and I don't know what's going to happen. And on the other hand, I was going, no, he won't be doing that, because he's too polite, he's too civilised. So he didn't go into the barracks. He went past it, and we drove into an area, and this place was called the Maiden, M-A-I-D-E-N, and it was notoriously dangerous, this area. It had about 5 junctions to it, so somebody could lob a grenade or start shooting at you, or propel a rocket launch, or whatever, and they'd be gone. So you had to be hyper alert at this point. And he stopped, and I couldn't understand why he'd stopped. And I looked at him, and he was slumped. His hands weren't on the driving wheel, he was kind of like that. And I looked, and he looked glazed, he looked very upset. And I'd said to him, what's, and I couldn't really get the words out. He said, I'm very sorry, sir, for what happened here. I'm very sorry for the burning of the bodies, the chopping the bodies up. This is bad. It should never happen. And I'm sorry, but it was bad, and I'm sorry. And he kept apologising about this happening. And I thought, cranky. And what do you just say to somebody like, I mean, it's not real. Is this happening? I've got to pinch myself. So I took him by the hand and I said, it's fine. Thank you very much for bringing me here. You've done the right thing. It's okay. It's fine. Thank you very much indeed. By now there's a lot of people peering into the car windows and I'm getting a little bit more nervous, but I have a rucksack. And in that rucksack I have artificial red and white roses. And I quietly opened the door, put my hand in the rucksack and just spread them right down there. He didn't see me doing this, but I had to do something like that. It wasn't an act of defiance, it was like, it's now or never. I'm never going to get the chance to do what I need to do here. And so I left the red and white roses right at the spot. And I said, right, we need to go now. I said, but I don't want you to drive out in a hurry. We've been chased out of here once and I don't want to be chased out again. I kind of became defiant then. It's balmy really, but anyway, that's how I felt. And he said, thank you, sir. And I said, by the way, but how did you actually see all this happening? But where were you? Up there, sir. I live up there. And he pointed to like 3 flats or whatever it was, and that sort of height. How old were you? 14, sir. I saw everything, sir. I was 14. So we've left Aden with all this stuff in our head about what they'd done to us, but nobody had even thought about, what about some of the indigenous people who didn't want to be involved in this act, this barbaric act. And he was only 14. And now he's telling me how he suffered. So I'm very pleased that I didn't actually get into the barracks, and pleased that the barracks was closed, because this probably wouldn't have happened. And also that I've helped this young man get over his guilt, if you like, because clearly that's what it was. And so we drove back to the hotel, and lucky enough it was going to be the following day when we were leaving, so I changed all my local currency, which was dinar, and you had a bag full which was probably worth a £5, and I had 2 bags which I'd changed the day before, and I had a lot of $20 notes with me. So I decided, I mean, his taxi, his car was an absolute banger, they all are. And I said to him, right, I'm going to give you some money to say thank you, because like money means a lot to them, because it's a poverty-stricken place. And of course he didn't want to. I said, I was only guessing. I said, no, this is for you, your wife and your family, your children. You take it from me. I really need you to have it. Thank you, sir. I will tell all my friends about you. I'll tell all my family about. I'll tell everybody about you. And I said, I'm going to tell everybody about you when I get back as well, which is what I did eventually. But it took me something like, I don't know, 15, 20 years after I got back from 1996 pilgrimage to actually tell anybody about it. I didn't tell anybody in the group. I couldn't. It was surreal. So that was my extra connection with Aden, by way of revisiting and paying our respects to the lads we left behind, and then suddenly had this opportunity to do something for a young Arab who clearly was suffering, and that to me kind of brought a lot of peace of mind.
Nightmares leading from scene to scene. Bad dreams bleeding from one to the next. From east to west, Aden, crater. What hits you first is the stink and the heat. Volcanic, shimmering, simmering heat. A cauldron of hate, and we're only here to keep the peace. But the lads at the front have walked straight into a turkey shoot, and we didn't sign up to fly the white flag. But the order comes through, stand down, so we're twiddling thumbs while muckers and mates are sliced and hacked into cuts of meat. Across the street, the seascape fades, and the brightness dies. And I'm taking fire and returning fire under British rain, under Irish skies. I follow a bloodline up to a door. Enter a house. A young girl screaming, "You murdered my dad, you murdered my dad," screaming it into my face. Crash out of that place, and I'm back at home. Stumbling, stuttering, soldiering on. fatherless girl might as well be my own. And the dead in the Yemen are lying there still, lying alone, lying there burning, lying there cold.